It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the FinSide. It ain't the left side or the right side.
Thank you, Solo D. Welcome to another episode of On the FinSide here with Kat and Paul. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. I'm Brian Cat NFL on Twitter, and Paul is Fanatic_pick. That's Fanatic with the PH. We are joined here previewing the Miami Dolphins Buffalo Bills matchup. The Bills are favored by 6 points heading into this Sunday. We are joined here by Nick Wojton, managing editor from the Bills Wire. Nick, thanks for joining us here tonight.
Oh, of course, anytime, guys. I always like coming on with you.
That's good. Well, taking a look at the Bills roster, we talked a few weeks ago. The arrow was still pointing up for the Bills. Obviously, they drop a 19-16 game last week to the Cleveland Browns, but overall still 6-3 on the year and a potential for the playoffs. So what's the feeling there in Buffalo right now?
I think it's a little bit of concern, to be honest with you. I mean, if you think a few weeks ago, the Bills, they won by 10 against the Dolphins, but of course that took a pretty wild onside kick that we haven't seen in like maybe a decade to go up by 10. So that combined with, okay, we just lost to the Cleveland Browns, which the Bills actually were not favored in that game. The betting line was in favor of Cleveland, but still, records aside, you look at it, the Bills went in with a winning record, 6-2 to 2-6, and now they're 6-3. Combined again with the Dolphins are on a 2-game winning streak, of course, which is not what I expected to be talking about coming back on with you guys right now, to be honest with you. But a lot of concern, I guess, a lot of things considered, a lot of concern.
Yeah. So what about Josh Allen now? Here is obviously he's a player that was monitored closely his progress from year 1 to year 2. Now he's really gaining ownership of the quarterback position and the team in general heading into season 2. Any real difference in the thoughts on this guy from when we talked a couple of weeks ago when the Dolphins and Bills played?
Yeah, the one thing that's definitely different about him, which I believe this started against maybe you guys, he's finally stopped turning the ball over. Of course, that's now kind of being brought in with you're not taking any risks. Of course, the life of an NFL quarterback. What are you doing for me lately? Well, you're not giving the ball away, but you're also not putting any touchdowns in over the top, over in the air. Still rushing in plenty of touchdowns, but that's kind of the feeling on him. So it's kind of a little bit of a give and take with him. We're happy that he's not giving the ball away, but of course we want to see a little bit more in the air, a little bit more dialing up. He's dropped down to maybe about 50% completion rating in the last couple of weeks. That's where he was as a rookie. Prior to that, he was a little bit more. This season, he's at about 58, 59%, up from 52% as a rookie. So really, it's the tale of two Joshes, I guess. Great. He's not throwing the ball to the other team, but also if we could throw it to our guys in the end zone, that'd be great too.
And Josh Allen last year against the Dolphins had 135 yards rushing in a game, 95 in the other. And this past time against us, he had 32 yards. So I'd imagine the more he could keep the ball there on the ground, then it's going to minimize the risk and assist the Bills in moving the ball down the field a little bit more. And another guy that helps with that too is Devin Singletary. Last time we talked, Frank Gore was really the clear-cut starter, partially because I believe Devin Singletary was hurt at that time. But over the last 3 weeks here, over the last 2 weeks, Singletary has carried the ball about 2 to 3 times more than Frank Gore has. Is it safe to say that he's really the main bell cow, or do you see the snaps being divided evenly in this game?
I would probably guess that you're going to see a couple more for Singletary. As you mentioned, that's kind of been the trend lately. And that's sort of been something where, as you mentioned, Singletary was hurt before, and everyone has kind of been on this feel-good story with Frank Gore. But there's been so many flashes where even in the beginning of the year, I think the first game or two, I want to say 2 weeks of the season, Singletary played alongside Gore. And it was really, even if Gore was getting more touches, more carries, I mean, Singletary was the guy where he'd make somebody miss in a phone booth, running through and he's a 5'7" guy too. Pro Football Focus has him graded as consistently one of their best pass blockers. He can really do it all, it seems. And it seems like the Bills, might have hit on a guy in the third round here that can really be a good running back for years to come, because he can take it outside, screen game. There's really a lot he can do. And hopefully, he can keep it up. But of course, still Frank Gore's still that feel good story, and they're kind of using him as their goal line back now at this point. So
we certainly know that firsthand after watching Gore play here in Miami last year. But over the last 2 weeks, Devin Singletary, 28 carries for 137 yards, 4.9 yards a carry. Frank Gore, 16 carries for 27 yards, 1.69 yards a carry. But then again, Gore is also getting a lot of those short yardage types of carries, like you alluded to.
That actually might be somewhere that the Dolphins might be able to exploit the Bills too. I should mention that Gore is also, and it's not, of course, short yardage situations are not just on the running back. It's a big time on the offensive line too. And the Bills haven't been great on those short yardage situations either. So that might be somewhere where the Dolphins, if they can get a push up the middle there, they could get the Bills offense off the field.
And I know that right tackle Ty Nsekhe did not practice yesterday, and Cody Ford, unless something different has come up at the time of this recording, is going to be starting there at right tackle. So a lot of not really any big names along the Bills' offensive line like there may have been a couple years ago with like a Cordy Glenn. So where do you see the strengths and the weak links in the Bills' offensive line right now?
Yeah, certainly the left side of their line is doing a lot better than the right side of their line. You have Deion Dawkins at left tackle. He was their second, third round pick a few years ago, I think in 2017. He's been pretty solid. I think Pro Football Focus has him as their top-rated guy. Quentin Spain came in kind of out of nowhere. The Bills completely have other than Deion Dawkins, there's 4 new guys. Quentin Spain at left guard, I think him and Deion Dawkins are working well next to each other. And when Deion Dawkins had Richie Incognito next to him there a few years ago, he really thrived. So that left side of the line can do well for the Bills when they have someone, capable next to Deion Dawkins. Mitch Morse, he was the big spending guy. They wanted to get a big guy in the middle. He's been okay. No really glaring errors, so I guess that's kind of what you want to see with an offensive lineman. The right side of their line is certainly, as you mentioned, at right tackle is the big one. Cody Ford's he's had his rookie struggles for sure. He was supposed to be a first-round pick. Bills traded back up in the second round to get him. Ty Nsekhe, he's actually been a little bit better, a little bit more consistent, I'd say. Long-time swing tackle for the Redskins, just kind of a steady guy. But the Bills they're doing a big they're switching these guys in. They're basically splitting snaps almost 50-50 right down the middle between Ty Nsekhe and Cody Ford. And really neither of them have grabbed that starting role. The Bills, of course, I think would want Cody Ford to be that guy, but he just hasn't done it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's Cody Ford is a player that we were certainly looking at here. Really as high as 13th overall, and then he ended up falling, and they have Ed Oliver fall to him in the first and Cody Ford falling to him in the second, which are the exact 2 picks I wanted for the Dolphins at the time. So makes me feel a little better. He's struggling, no offense, but
yeah. Actually, not to get off topic here, but we mentioned Singletary doing well, their third round pick. Austin Knox, another third round pick. He's doing pretty well. Ed Oliver, he's lost his starting spot. Cody Ford can't get in the lineup, so it's really the Bills' third round rookies that are the class of their rookie class right now.
Interesting. And staying on, we'll get to the defense with Oliver in just a second. As far as the wide receivers and tight ends are concerned, looking at the targets and the yards on the year, it looks like 3 clear guys are emerging, and that's John Brown's on his way to a really good year. He was a fantastic signing for them. And then Cole Beasley has 39 catches for 411 yards, and Dawson Knox as well is getting the lion's share of the catches there at tight end. Something like, I think Allen had 28 possible targets to the wide receivers and tight ends last week. Knox, Brown, and Cole Beasley got 23 of them. So do you think that's going to stay pretty standard throughout the rest of the year? You think he's found his top 3 targets there?
Certainly, at least with Brown and Beasley. Last week was a little bit more of what I thought we were going to be seeing with Cole Beasley. The 3 games prior, starting against the Dolphins, I actually believe, if my math is correct, he scored 3 games in a row. His first 3 scores as a Buffalo Bill. But he had, I think combined, I did the math as a great journalist would. He had like 80 or 90 yards catching combined in those 3 games. But he scored. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
You'd expect Cole Beasley to get more targets, more looks, get more of those short yardage plays. And you mentioned John Brown. He's been the best Bills wide receiver, I don't know, maybe since Lee Evans back in the day, and he never really had a good quarterback. So, Eric Moulds maybe. He's one of the only 2 guys for the longest time, I think, which is still consistency, a record, if you will, right now that he has at least 50 yards receiving in every game this year. And I think only one other guy had that, and I think John Brown still has it. He's just steady as it goes somehow, some way. He every week is making a play, and it's great. It's great. The Bills have. I mean, you guys see us twice a year, every year. The Bills are never really sporting anyone threatening. I mean, we thought we had it with Sammy Watkins, but not so fast there.
Yeah, and Lee Evans was incredible in that I remember one game against the Dolphins. I think it was 2005. He had 150 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, and then I'm not sure he had a catch the rest of the game. And having him on your fantasy football team was maddening because he'd go from 1 catch to 9 yards to 8 catches for 200. So at least John Brown's a little more consistent there.
Yeah, no, exactly. You mentioned Knox too. He's interestingly, when Tyler Kroft came back in the lineup a few weeks ago, Tyler Kroft was getting, I guess, in terms of snap counts, he was the starter. He was getting more snaps, and now it almost went right back to Dawson Knox. So they're seeing more out of, to your point, they're seeing more out of Dawson Knox than the veteran they're hoping for out of Tyler Kroft. So that might end up being a little bit of a one-year experiment with Tyler Kroft in Buffalo, because Dawson Knox is looking really well.
Yeah, interesting guy there. He's in the passing game. Did not catch a touchdown pass at Ole Miss in his entire college career. Goes in the 3rd round, and he was actually supposed to go a little bit higher, but he's certainly been a good weapon out there. I see some similarities between he and Mike Gesicki in the passing game and what they bring to both of the offenses here. So looking at the defensive side of the ball too, you mentioned Ed Oliver and the rest of the defensive line too, and in terms of pressuring the quarterback. I think the two biggest things that Dolphins fans will take a look at the stat sheet and the depth chart and think is, A, why is Ed Oliver not starting? And number 2, how does Jordan Phillips have 6 sacks and leads the team, and the second guy only has 2.5 with Jerry Hughes?
Yeah, great questions, guys. I wish I knew the perfect answer for you. Expected. I mean, the only time Ed Oliver got a sack so far, he came in as a pass rushing specialist in the middle. Of course, he came from Houston, so maybe he's, getting a little bit of a rookie bumps. He didn't come from, an Alabama, which is essentially a pro team playing college, of course. So maybe a little bit of a learning curve for him. I think Jordan Phillips maybe brings in a little bit more as a run defender too, but he does have 3 sacks in one game. So that's worth pointing out, which is, great. We'll take that. So half of his sacks came in one game, but he's just been a big, pleasant surprise. I mean, Ed Oliver only had a sack on a wide receiver. I think that was against you guys, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
Yeah,
that was only. It was first Dolphins offensive player of the game. It was actually on a wide receiver, Albert Wilson.
Yeah, Albert Wood. I was going to say Wilson or Parker. I couldn't remember who it was. But yeah, that's Ed Oliver's only sack of his rookie career so far is against the wide receiver. So he's technically never sacked a quarterback before. So I think that is what the Bills are going with. It's going to be different than kind of what you guys have seen under Sean McDermott in the last couple of years. Is their running defense? Pardon me. Really, it's been the catalyst the last couple of weeks. I mean, the Bills were lucky last week to only lose by 3, to be honest, because it wasn't that they started wrapping Nick Chubb up. Freddie Kitchens just stopped giving Nick Chubb the ball after he had 85 yards in the first half. He ended up going over 100, but it was, mind-blowing for a Browns fan, I bet, because to run the ball against this Bills defensive line. What they're trying to do is the Bills usually get a big rotation in there, but now the starters are getting about 70 to 75% of the snaps in the defensive line. So the Bills are really trying to experiment with things. So you'll probably see a lot of Jerry Hughes, Jordan Phillips, Starlo Toulier, and Trent Murphy. Trent Murphy's been good against the run, hasn't really done much of anything else. Starlo Toulier is a lightning rod here because he's got the second highest cap hit, and a lot of folks are, he's supposed to be the space eater. Hey, you're supposed to be the guy who's, taking up blockers so we can get the running back in the backfield. He's not really doing that. Jordan Phillips is the surprising candidate of the year. Everyone's wondering if we're going to be able to bring him back now. And Jerry Hughes he's the steady as a go guy. I mean, he really only thrived in Buffalo when Mario Williams was playing across from him. So that's kind of the MO and the 4 starters there for you.
Well, if Jerry Hughes is looking for a breakout game, he is going up against Jamarcus Webb at left tackle, who's been nothing short of atrocious. I mean, think of a worse version of Jordan Mills playing left tackle. And
we know that.
Yes, you've got Jamarcus Webb there. Obviously, the strength of the Bills team in general is that combination with Tremaine Edmonds, a middle linebacker, and their combined with that secondary. I mean, the last game, Ryan Fitzpatrick did surprisingly throw for a lot of yards, but the Dolphins also had two big power forwards on the outside with Devontae Parker and Preston Williams. Preston Williams is actually going to is out for the rest of the year, as you know.
Yep.
And now, do you see Tre'Davious White getting lined up more on Devontae Parker throughout this game, or do you see White staying on his side of the field?
That's a good question. It seems like that's always a weekly plan for the Bills, depending on the team they're playing. I would guess with the discrepancy without Preston Williams, you'll probably see Tre'Davious White following him around. In recent weeks, we saw the Redskins rookie Terry McLaurin. Tre'Davious White locked him down last week. OBJ, he had a decent stat line, maybe like 4 catches for like 50 yards or something like that. But he also had about 12, 13 targets. So all things considered, Trey White did a really good job against him. So I'd probably guess that. But I would also expect that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to be looking Levi Wallace's way quite a bit, our second cornerback here in Buffalo, because he's kind of struggled the last few weeks.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. And Trey White is on the other side, is having just a monster year. And in the first matchup, I mean, I'd even argue that if Tre'Davious White doesn't strip Preston Williams and the Bills get the ball deep in Dolphins territory, and then he also intercepts a pass a couple drives before that on the 16th play of a 16-play drive,
yep.
Dolphins may end up winning that game, or at least could come down to the wire on that. So a huge year for Tre'Davious White at cornerback. And also they've got the safeties, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. So what do you think the Bills need to do here to win this game against the Dolphins?
I think they need to convince everyone, starting with themselves, that they're at least competent on offense. This week, Sean McDermott is Mr. Process. He's Mr. Culture. He's Mr. kind of what you guys are seemingly installing with Brian Flores down there. He got pushed a little bit in his press conference, and it wasn't I wrote it up as it wasn't a Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. It wasn't a Dennis Green. What they thought they were. But I mean, he was asked, what's your overall level of frustration with the offense? And he was asked, he started getting annoyed. What do you mean? More specific, and he was just like, well, I want to score points, simply put, and just like left. That was the press conference. It ended after about 8-9 minutes. Didn't slam his fist, didn't get angry, but for him, that was getting angry. You know what I mean? So
right.
I think the biggest thing in this game for the Bills is what your defense is going to have. I mean, it would be nice to slow the running attack down. I think we know it's going to happen against us at this point, that you guys are going to run the ball a bit. Fully confident in that secondary. I mean, the Bills are still the third best defense overall in the NFL in terms of yards allowed. Their run defense is just slip. I think they're down to 23rd, but their pass defense is so good that it's just keeping them afloat in the overall ranking. So I think we got to see something from Josh Allen in this game. Still no 300-yard games. That's the big thing on Bill's Twitter. The analytical numbers, he's doing what they're asking of him, but Daniel Jones had a 300-yard game real quick, and now he's on to multiple of them. So, and everyone was laughing about him being drafted. So, what's going on here, Josh?
Right. And it's him finding that balance between, being able to take off and run as well as completing a higher percentage of his passes is where he needs to be. Because you brought up a great point that, last year he had somewhere around 52-53% completion. This year he was in the 60s up until I think this past week, where I think he's 59.9 now. But, it's if he can have those wheels and he can have over 60% completion percentage, I think that's where he needs to be long term.
Oh yeah, absolutely. To maintain that threat as a passer, I mean, that's going to be his career right there. I mean, we can see he can run, and he's not, the Lamar Jackson of the world, where he's just going to do a ridiculous spin move and break my ankle sitting on my couch at home when he's going around those Cincy defenders. But he can run the ball. We get it. He can get it in on those short yardage situations. I would even bet that he's better than Lamar Jackson in certain aspects of running. But I mean, with the arm, I mean, we still got to see it here. A lot of folks have actually been arguing this week, a guy you guys are very well aware of, Tyrod Taylor. I mean, simply put, Tyrod Taylor's numbers comparatively in his last 20 starts, they're just slightly better than Josh Allen's passing the ball. And the Bills got rid of Tyrod Taylor. Why? Because, he could only run the ball. Well, you just replace Tyrod Taylor with Tyrod Taylor then.
Well, Tyrod Taylor wasn't playing the Dolphins every week. That was the problem.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. He did save it for them.
That's for sure. So I will tell you this: looking at the Bills' schedule, they're 6-3 right now. They'll be 7-3 if they beat the Dolphins here, and then they've got the Broncos at home the week after, and they've got the Jets in the final week of the season at home in Buffalo. I'll tell you, I think this is the game where Bills fans are going to look back and say that Dolphins game in week 12, or excuse me, week 11 is where we either made the playoffs or didn't make the playoffs, because I think that's going to end up being the difference between 9 wins and 10 wins. But what's your prediction on this game here?
I honestly could not agree more. I think this is going to be somehow, some way, this is a must-win game for the Bills against the Dolphins, which a few weeks ago, who would have thought they were saying that? But my prediction for this one, I think I'll go with the Bills in a very, very similar game as last time. If you want to put a score on it, maybe, I know it's 31-21 last time, maybe like 30-20 again, somewhere really similar to that, because I see the Bills just letting them, their MO all season is let them hang around, and I can just see that we know Ryan Fitzpatrick very well up here, and he's going to make you guys hang around. It's simply put, honestly, we love the guy up here, and kind of like you're alluding to with Frank Gore, how we got our taste of him. Well, we've had our taste of Fitz, and we know why you guys probably love him too, just diving head first at every time he runs the ball, and somehow always getting up. He's like the only quarterback that's allowed to do it because he never gets hurt doing it. Yeah, I think it's going to be a close one again. 30-20, somewhere around there, maybe, 28-20, around that area. I think the Bills are going to let the Dolphins hang around, though, and there's going to be a lot of people on the edge of their seats up in Western New York.
And that will do it for our breakdown of the Miami Dolphins-Buffalo Bills matchup with Nick Wojton, managing editor of the Bills Wire. And Nick, tell them where they can find you on Twitter.
Yeah, and that's appreciate that. I'm at @Nick WOJ as in Jack TON, and if that's a little bit hard to spell for you guys, because I know it is, because every telemarketer I've ever heard in my life, @The Bills Wire is a lot easier for you.
And you can find Paul and I'm Brian Cat NFL. Paul is Fanatic_pick. That's Fanatic with a PH. And you can find us on the FinSide on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the FinSide. Solo D, take us out.
It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the FinSide. It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the FinSide. Listen, Dolphins fans across the land all tuning in to see what Brian Cat and